Hey, pretentious engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but welcome to your weekly one-on-one where I tackle some of the internet's most challenging questions. Now, I've made it my personal mission to help engineers, global leaders, and entrepreneurs find their way. And this course is my first course for my school community called How to Say Goodbye, where I document my strategic exit from Johnson & Johnson, which took place over quite a series of months in complexity. Our family navigated 12 relocations to get to Japan, and we completed our 13th in order to secure life here beyond Johnson & Johnson. Now, it's very difficult to determine whether or not you should stay with your employer or progress onto something different. So I wanted to break this into 9 modules with really actionable steps and principles that you can apply within your own career context. Now, today we're going to be going through one of my favorite lessons. This is the second one in the series, called Frog in the Pot. So before we jump into that, let me provide a little bit context on the whole journey that we're progressing through. So just to catch you back up, the first block, which has 3 modules, is focused on inertia, which are all the factors that keep us in a role that's not necessarily progressing us towards something that's in our best interest or in our family's best interest or something that we're passionate about. The second stage, or the second part, is going to be impact, where it's actually how do you break through, how do you make this legitimate choice to progress forward even when you can't see exactly how everything will turn out and where you'll land. And then the third stage is actually momentum. How do you really internalize this decision and do everything in your best interest to protect yourself in your exit? For us, we had a lot of challenges exiting Johnson & Johnson that's my son, while being on an expat rotation in Japan. So we'll get into how I left with strength and what I've moved into in the future. Now, today's module, A Frog in a Pot, I'm very, very excited about. So let me change screens. So Frog in a Pot is one of my favorite modules, and that's why I was so excited to actually give this away as the first free module on our waitlist. This frog and the concept was really inspired by a close friend of mine named Leon, as we were both kind of navigating all these different organizational constraints and challenges we were navigating within Johnson & Johnson. Basically, the idea was we both were willingly staying in an organization that we knew didn't have our best interests in mind, at least in that season. Prior periods of our career, yes, it was great. We were flourishing. But as things were shifting and changing, we recognized that we weren't really a priority. And this idea of being a consenting frog in a pot kind of came to mind. So if you're not familiar with this concept, basically if you put a frog in a pot, and I've never done this personally, but apparently if you put a frog in a pot and start boiling it, the water temperature increases so gradually that the frog can't perceive it, and then it just ends up dead. It doesn't have the ability to discern and jump. I have no idea scientifically if this is actually grounded or not. I'm not a biologist, right? Let's see. Does baby need love? Fight. So to build off the prior lesson where we did an ikigai to figure out whether or not opportunities were better externally or internally, the idea that the grass is greener on the other side, the idea of a frog in the pot is helpful because we can start to look at the factors that are heating the pot, or basically making our environment not beneficial for either personal development or to progress meaningful innovation, or from a pay, level, role, title, opportunity perspective. This gives us a common language of what are the elements that are actually heating the pot and how do we write them down? Because when we write them down and see them, there's a power in that. So I'm going to go through my pot experiences that led to my exit from Johnson & Johnson, but I invite you to do this as an exercise for yourself. What are you experiencing and how severe are those elements that are providing that thermal pressure, if that makes sense? So the first one I have, I'm going to try to write across my body while holding Akio, so let's see if this works. And I have like 2 kids upstairs. This is just a mess. All right, so the first one I navigated was lateral moves. Did I write that right? Yeah, so the first one I navigated was a series of lateral moves. I was moved out of design engineering because I was perceived as not technical enough to be a design engineer, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. So that pushed me into robotics controls, then into systems engineering. And then systems engineering actually became a lateral move into this front-end innovation lead role out in Japan. Even though the scope of the work and what was necessary for its success required me to do cross-platform alignment with upstream R&D, executive leadership, kind of shape strategy and vision, direct an ecosystem of 30 plus engineers. I don't know if you heard the scream. I have no idea what my son's upset about. I think they're playing Pokemon or something. But I had to navigate all of these transitions. I moved internationally on behalf of this role, and on paper it was still lateral. Now there's one promotion that occurred during that. It's technically a double promotion, but it still didn't offset what was expected of me, which means this is the second factor. And equitable pay. Basically, I started to run into these situations where I was navigating an inequitable pay gap for me. We went from 1 kid to 2 kid to 3 kid to 4 kid, and yet our salary didn't increase with proportion to what I was doing and what was expected of me. I was doing director level work in a global context, being paid as a senior engineer because that was my title on paper. And what happened is, as I tried to move into other opportunities that were still in Japan and APAC, because of different HR processes, I couldn't actually jump into director level roles to have the right level of influence, the right roles and responsibilities, and the right pay. So this was a huge factor for heating the pot. Even though we're out in Japan and our pay was super inflated because they covered our housing as well as schooling for the kids, it actually wasn't equitable as a base salary. So we were paycheck to paycheck the 3 years we've been out here. So that's the second factor. Business. The third factor is business scarcity. So when I relocated out to Japan, things within medtech were going very well within Johnson & Johnson. Then we had a lot of impacts from like latent COVID, challenges with like elective procedures not occurring, and so many priorities were going towards robotic surgery that our base handheld business was being deprioritized financially. So one of the big challenges I experienced while being out in Japan is running into a lot of business scarcity. There's a series of layoffs, which actually that's the second thing I wanted to write down. Organizational restructure. Structures. A little sloppy. So basically, there's a lot of organizational restructures that's actually impacted my US VP and the majority of his team in front end. I was able to keep my role and it got extended. I moved under different leadership. But during all of these restructures, there's a lot of cost pressure on the organization, and innovation from Japan became deprioritized as a focus, which made my role very vulnerable. Our family navigated 12 relocations on behalf of Johnson & Johnson to progress front-end innovation, and yet the organization was no longer prioritizing that. They were laying off front-end innovators, they were externalizing different aspects of innovation, and I could tell that extension of my assignment was no longer going to be feasible as planned. It was never promised, but there are other individuals that were able to stay in the region longer, and that's what we were building towards as a family of 3 becoming 4 in that transition. So this leads to the next thing that I will write. One of the ways that I retained my role in Japan during all the organizational restructures is my VP stuck his neck out for me and basically from like an ethical perspective advocated to other senior leaders, how could we as a business impact Joe after everything they've navigated to get to Japan on behalf of the business. So I was allowed to continue in the role for about 1.5 years and still try to provide value. But this is where the next factor comes in. Let me write this down. Work integration. So work-life integration fell apart though, because when you're in a position where you're navigating the trauma of 12 moves to get to a location, and then all of a sudden the stability of your family is dependent on the success of your work in the region, you find yourself overworking to serve your family and no longer being present with them. And I was in that position of tension for about 1.5 years consistently, doing everything I thought I could do to be home with the kids and to progress the job and have VPs come out and demo all the technology I'm progressing on behalf of the market, and realizing they're navigating different organizational constraints. And I basically ran into these situations where I couldn't get any organization to continue to float my headcount in the region, whether I provided value across design engineering, global strategic marketing, business development. I applied to like 20 plus roles in order to give Johnson & Johnson the best shot at retaining my talent in the region. So all these factors heat the pot, right? They're not creating an environment where I'm now thriving, but rather I'm fighting to survive and preserve stability for my family. And this leads to the final factor that kind of made the pot boil over and helped me jump, which is a bad offer. So, and I say it in kind, but a new VP rolled in. They didn't have a new VP rolled in and they didn't have the same emotional attachment to the journey my family had made on behalf of the company. And I started to feel a little bit like paperwork, where basically your assignment's ending. They extended it for an extra 3 months to cover parental leave for this guy. But then it's kind of like time to wash our hands clean of this. You're coming back to the US. And at the last minute, they changed the location from Cincinnati to New Jersey. New Jersey is about 14 hours from our family by car. And we live 14 hours by family by plane. So it was also a fifth lateral move after everything that I had done and developed in a business function called Lifecycle, which is maintaining products that have been launched. I've already worked in Lifecycle early in my career. So everything about the role started to just feel wrong, and that helped us discern that it was time to go. So I'd like to move forward into something called praxis. Praxis, I don't know if it's Latin or Greek. I got to look it up. I learned it in theology, but basically it's the idea of like putting something into practice, right? You hear these words, you hear these stories. How do you actually internalize it for yourself? First of all, you probably have a list of factors that are heating your pot. That's great. I have 3 questions I want you to reflect on, and me and Akil will write them down for you. And then that'll conclude this lesson. So the first factor is knowing the factors. Did I write that right? 1 second. Let's do this again. So the first one is knowing the factors, comma, do you still consent to being in the pot? And I think this is such an important question because I consented to being in the pot even with the bad offer. I wanted to make sure we exhausted every option possible before we left Japan. And for me, like the boiling over even beyond the bad offer, I went through a series of 5 interviews for a director of business development role in Japan, supporting Asia Pacific. It was a good fit. I thought I was overqualified. And I had a conversation with HR about this role, and it didn't come with an expat package. What that means is I'm normally paid in USD. They were going to change the pay rate to be localized in yen, which was going to be a 40% base pay cut. I wasn't going to get housing support. I wasn't going to get international schooling for our kids, which is about $18,000 per person. And it was like on paper, a 3-level promotion, even though I was already exceeding that scope of work within my prior role. And for me, I was like, well, that's not going to work. I still ended up progressing through that interview process just to have visa continuity. But that was kind of a moment for me to like talk to Felicia and be like, this is just wrong. Like it's time. Right. So that was the moment where I no longer consented to what our family was experiencing. And I had given J&J every good faith effort to stay. So that's the first question. Second one, if yes, what factors would make you jump? It's okay, bud. I know it's stressful. It's very stressful. It's the only pocket we have. Oh no. Give me 1 second. And this last one, this is the killer question. All right, here we go. If no, then why are you still in the pot? This is where soul searching is required. This is where you have to talk to your partner. You have to talk to your peers, maybe not the ones in your work if they're a problem, but you need to figure out, maybe bring this into the community and chat about it. There's some reason you're still staying in a situation that doesn't serve you, that doesn't respect you or honor you, that cooks you, that makes you boil over. And you really need to consider why. Because there's different things. You may feel inadequate. For me, I started to feel that I didn't have value after applying to 20 jobs and not getting any of them. But then transitioning into the Tokyo entrepreneurial spaces, like my perceived value within the Tokyo entrepreneurial spaces is so much higher with those circles than within the Johnson & Johnson silos and the walls I was navigating. I ran into so many leaders that gave me the thoughts and prayers kind of responses, but then had no power to actually make it right for us as a family and to allow us to continue to provide value to Johnson & Johnson and stay here. So you have to kind of hit this point of like, why are you still in the pot? And how do you actually work through all these different limiting perspectives you may have that keep you stuck? All right. So with that, you can sip on that. We'll call the lesson there. Thanks for the flexibility. This is the first one I've ever made. So I'll see you on the next one.